Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, and welcome to another episode of Ask the Alima with me, your host, Alima Naeema. I'm here today to talk about so many things that people have been questioning about, people have been messaging about, and today I actually want to talk about something that is quite heavy, something that it's really important that we discuss in this day and age, especially when so many people are not talking about. A sister messaged just the other day, and she messaged me coming from a place of helplessness, hopelessness, and a place of, a place where she was struggling. And I felt like it was important for me to discuss this topic on this platform, on this TV show, because I know some of you may be able to relate to this and may be able to inshallah shed light on this topic as well and talk to your family members about it. And the topic that I want to discuss with you all today is a topic of depression. Now, the sister who called in, who messaged earlier, she mentioned that she is living in a beautiful home with members who are so supportive, and they are on the deen and they are religious practicing family members. And she has recently approached them and has told them that she is struggling severely with depression. Her family have said to her that if you're a Muslim, how can you possibly be struggling with depression? My brothers and sisters, my heart went out for this sister. Honestly, my heart was shattered for this sister. And I felt like it was so important to discuss this, that a believer can also struggle with anxiety, can also struggle with depression, just the same way a believer can also have an illness like cancer. Depression is real, and it's happening with people within our own homes. It's people within our homes and communities are struggling with depression. And it's really important that we are aware of what depression is and how it can affect people of all ages, not just those who are older. It can affect the young ones, the youngest to the teenagers, even children. So today I'd love to shine light on this topic, coming from a place of compassion, love, understanding, because it's really important that if you're not aware of how depression can come up in those around you, it's really important that we learn and we raise awareness. And if we don't know, we go out of our way to find out ways we can assist those, instead of turning to them and saying, well, maybe you're disconnected from Allah and that's why you're struggling. So if anybody has anything they'd like to share about this, feel free to call in the number on screen or send us a WhatsApp message. It will be anonymous. But if you are struggling with something like this, it's really important that you get support from professionals, because not only is this something that can affect your life, it can affect the loved ones around you as well. So first of all, how does depression show up in those around us? It's not just feeling down or down in the dumps or feeling sad. It's a real heavy feeling where you can feel like you're drained of all the energy. And it's not that you're not connected with Allah and that's why you're struggling, because maybe you are disconnected from Allah. However, that's just a symptom of it. So the sister said, how could I become connected to Allah? Like, I pray my salah, I do everything to the best of my ability, but some days I do feel disconnected, and it's probably because Allah is punishing me. That's why I have depression. No, not at all. Even the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, at one point in his life, he felt severely down to the extent where we could call it depression. So yes, we can. I truly do believe as a Muslim, as a Muslimah, as a believer, as a mu'min, you are at an advantage because we have Allah in our lives. We know that Allah has the power to take care of us in ways that no one else can. We know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can bring comfort inside our hearts the way no one else can. However, there is action on your side as well that needs to be there. And you need to have a strong support system in place. So if you are around family members who don't understand, it's really important that you have this conversation with them, or you speak to somebody who does know what you're going through, because depression and anxiety can take you to lonely, dark places. And you don't want it to be that you're struggling with this alone, because there is support out there. There's professional help out there. And it's really important that you take that help. And of course, we rely on Allah, but Allah is the one who opens up doors for us so we can get that support, inshallah. just some more on the topic of how, if you have a family member who is struggling with depression or anxiety, it can come up in ways which we may not be familiar with. Maybe it could be them sleeping till hours without being able to get up. It can be that they find it a struggle to look after themselves in terms of personal hygiene. It can be that they feel like they can't talk to you, and we can see that as, oh, they're being really rude. However, this person may be struggling with depression. We have mothers that are struggling with postpartum depression. We have so many things that could come up, but it's upon us to be aware. But if we don't have the correct understanding, it's upon us to go find out how we can help those around us who may be struggling with it. Obviously, first and foremost, we be kind, we be compassionate, we come from a place of understanding and not forcing them to do anything that they may not be ready for. But it also can be that we're just there to listen to them and be there for them, to motivate them. So yes, we can motivate them to connect with Allah, but there's so many other areas that we can look at. For example, one of the areas is by being around positive people, helping them to maybe get back onto exercising and having something that, moving their body, being the person that can say, let's go for a walk together, let's go outside and remember Allah, go for a walk, get some fresh air. All these small things can be a huge thing for a person who's struggling with depression. A question that's come in from a sister saying she's struggling with anxiety, and are there any prayers or any du'as that, from the sunnah that can help her with this? Actually, one does come to mind, a very famous, beautiful du'a. There's many du'as out there, and actually, in fact, the Quran is a cure for the soul, and reciting Surah Fatiha and all your full quls and reading your adhkar daily, these kind of things do protect us from so many things that are seen and unseen, from illnesses like physical illnesses that affect us physically and mental illnesses as well. However, one specific dua comes to mind, and it goes, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-hammi wal-hazni wa a'udhu bika min al-ajzi wal-kasal wa a'udhu bika min al-jubni wal-bukhl wa a'udhu bika min ghalbat al-dayni wa qahr al-rijal. And the translation of it, the beginning of the translation of it, if you can find this dua in many books and in your adhkar as well, or even online. And if you do want a copy of this dua, then feel free to WhatsApp the number on screen, and I'll be happy to send that to you. However, a translation of the dua would be, oh Allah, I seek your protection from anxiety and grief, and I seek your protection from the inability and laziness. I seek protection from cowardice and miserliness, and I seek protection from being overcome by debt and being overpowered by men. So that's just the translation of that dua. But there are many duas from the Sunnah and from the Prophet that were mentioned by the Prophet that shows that these things, these illnesses, depression, anxiety are so real. It's not something that the Sahabas didn't go through as well. And in fact, the story of this dua was that the Prophet he went to the masjid, and there was a man from the Ansar, and he was sitting there. I can't remember his name, but I'm pretty sure it was Abu Umama who was sitting there in the masjid, and it wasn't salah time. So the Prophet turned to him and he goes, oh, Abu Umama, why are you here when it isn't time for salah? And Abu Umama turns around and he goes, it is my grief and my debt that has caused me to come and sit here. And the Prophet instructed Abu Umama to recite this dua, and from then on he never felt that anxiety anymore. We have a caller that has called through. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Sister, I just want to ask you that in society there is one extreme condition, because the young generation, they're going towards addictions, lots of addictions, a lot of different type of addictions, and we don't address that issue. Instead, we point our finger towards those kids and we separate them and we say, labelize them, and that is not the solution. How can we collectively address this issue and help in the society? How can we, like in mosques, school teachers, everybody, like parents, everybody should engage in that problem.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good question, sister. And I'm so glad you asked that, because it's so important that we know how to address these issues. You're right. You're so right. So many young children and old people and people of all ages, it doesn't really matter what the age is, but people are turning to addictions because of depression. I myself have worked with people who have struggled with addictions. And I think the first thing that we need to understand as a society is that we need to take the shame out of it. We're so quick to shame people who have addictions, that, oh, that person, he drinks, or he's on drugs, or he turns to this and that. There's a lot of shame in our speech, unfortunately. It's heartbreaking, the shame that we have in our speech these days when we see people who are doing something that is not correct. First and foremost, come from a place, please, I'm actually here begging you that come from a place of understanding and compassion. Because if we are shaming the other person, or shaming this person's neighbor or that person's son for having an addiction, then na'udhu billah, if in our own home we have people who are struggling with addictions and struggling with anxiety and depression and are unable to find a healthy outlet, then these are the people who won't come to you. Your own people won't come to you. They'll see you as, they're unapproachable. So always look at anyone, take the judgment out of it, take the shame out of it, and come from it from a place of, how can I help you? Let me in. Let me see what you're struggling with, and what do you need for us to help you with? Just, if you can't help, if you don't have any solutions and you have nothing positive to say to this person, then just be the person who listens. Just be the person who has a listening ear. So inshallah, this is one. Obviously, it's a lot deeper than this. And if this person is struggling, then, advise them to get professional medical help. But, it does start from home as well. So many times, people go to doctors and they're not able to get, even though the professionals help them, they don't have the support they need within their own circle, within their own communities. So it's really important that we start by getting the help we need from our loved ones. So be open and understanding, and always come from a place of compassion first. Thank you so much for that question. It was a very important one. And if you do have any other questions, feel free to give us a call or WhatsApp us, and I will be happy to answer them after our break. Please do dial in with your bill payer's permission, and your WhatsApp questions will remain anonymous. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, and welcome back. So we were just having a great discussion just before our break about how anxiety and depression can come up in people, and how, because of cultural taboos, at times it isn't addressed all the time, and unfortunately the right support isn't given to those who we love and care about. So I would love to carry on talking about this great topic, but just before I get into this, any viewers or anybody who does need support with this particular issue of struggling with depression and anxiety, please visit the website at britishmuslim.tv/support. Great. So a caller called in earlier, and she mentioned how the youth are turning to addictions because of their anxiety and depression. And it was an amazing question of how we can navigate this. And just to touch up on this topic again, by coming first and foremost, it's really important that we collectively as a community come from a place of compassion, understanding, and instead of shaming these people, listening to them, hearing them, and seeing what the real issue is. I myself was guilty of not being very aware, but the more you talk to these people, the more you realize that these people are human. These people are human that are really struggling. I myself have worked with many Muslim women who are struggling with addictions. And if you hear them, it's the same story of, I feel trapped, I feel lost, I feel like there was no other outlet for me. I felt like I was very lonely. So these are the signs. If you yourself are struggling, please do reach out to those around you and tell them, let them in, because there's a very high chance that these people want to help you. These people care about you, and you're not alone. And in fact, like I mentioned earlier, as a believer, we are at an advantage as well. Your illness, your struggle is not because you don't have deen in your life. However, we can feel disconnected and almost forget as well. However, it is really important to remember that Allah is above all. Allah can open up doors that you could never have even imagined. Allah is there to support you in your darkest days. Allah is there even when you call upon Allah. If you can't hear Allah, Allah can hear you. And I think it's so beautiful. Also, one ayah that makes me smile when it says, "La tahzan, inna Allaha ma'ana." Don't be scared, Allah is with you. That itself brings us so much comfort. So I know it's a struggle, especially when you're feeling so drained and you're feeling like nothing else is falling into place, or maybe everything is going wrong and nothing seems like it's in your favor. Allah can change things for you. Start by asking. Even if it seems impossible, start by asking, because you don't know when Allah will answer that prayer of yours. So there's no harm in asking, because Allah can do the impossible. So inshallah, I'd love to touch upon this topic more in the coming weeks. But for those of you who want help, if you are struggling with this, first and foremost, know that yes, turning to Allah is one thing. However, there's many other areas to look at. For example, your thought process. Question yourself, like, what are your current thoughts? Where is your focus right now? So many small things that we can do by moving our body. Is something as simple as making sure that we have a great routine in place. We underestimate the simple things like having an amazing nighttime routine or an amazing morning routine. Simple things like making sure that we are eating on time. And if we aren't able to do things like prepare our meals because of a busy schedule, we seek support from those around us. Ask, because if we don't ask, we don't get. We're in a society where we feel so ashamed of asking those for support because we feel like we're too much. However, we need to understand that we need to come together as a community and help each other, in whether it's with mental health issues, whether it's support just by making another believer's life slightly easier, believer or non-believer, it doesn't matter. But these are acts of sadaqah, and we can gain reward by being of support for those around us, inshallah. In many ways, whether or not they're struggling, we can be, we're so consumed by our own things these days that we almost forget that it is, in the time, like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam set so many beautiful examples in his life. His whole life is literally there as an example for us to live by. And they were, the Sahabas, the way they lived, they supported each other. They were there to help each other with debts. They were there to help each other. If one person's pocket was empty, they would support them, provide for their family. They would also do things like give them food. As a neighbor, they'd always give their neighbors food before they even fed their own families. So it's really important that we bring these acts back into our life. Just sharing a smile, subhanAllah, like which religion rewards the followers for smiling? Simple things like moving something out the path. Like we've lost, unfortunately, we are Muslim, but we've lost the authentic way of living as a Muslim. And we think that being a Muslim is so hard, but in reality, it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to stick by our religion and our authentic teachings than stray from them, because that's when the problems arise, is when we feel like there's too much difficulty in adhering to the sunnah. But in fact, the sunnah is actually a way of life it's a simple way of life that brings us so much ease, and it brings us so much barakah, and it brings us so much, it brings communities together. So inshallah, with the New Year's coming up as well, it's a great time to rectify our intentions as to what kind of things that we want to implement within our homes and implement within our own lives, because at the end of the day, it's upon us to find out ways in which we can make our life more pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because it's very often that we forget our purpose in this life. And when we are so consumed with those things around us, like work, our children, and this and that, we're constantly being pulled into so many things. It's really important that coming up to New Year's, especially now, I think it's an amazing time of the year where we can really sit down and reflect and think, where can I improve in my life and make my life more pleasing to Allah? What is my purpose in this world? So some of the things could be even simple things like thinking, I'm going to take care of my health. Rectify your intentions there. You want to take care of your health so that you can have more energy and time to do ibadah. You can show up for your family, because even that is a sadaqah. like myself, I'm a busy mom, but when I say this as a reminder to myself first, when I do things for myself, like take care of myself and exercise and eat healthily, I see as I'm doing this so that I have more energy. And when I have more energy, I'm able to take care of not only myself, but my family. And that itself is a sadaqah, and Allah will reward me for that. So we can literally rectify our intentions and have good intentions set anywhere, and we will get rewarded for all of those things. So just a little bit more about having a way of life that is pleasing to Allah. Start small. Start by doing small things consistently. And even that itself, if you are a person who's struggling with your mental health, being consistent on one small thing at a time can make the hugest difference. Because sometimes when we try and do too many things and tick too many boxes for too many people, it can lead us to being burnt out, and it can lead us to self-sabotaging our efforts. So instead, start small. Start by one thing at a time. Start by one good deed at a time. That could be for you, could be for somebody else. And start by being compassionate to those around us, inshallah, because like the sister on the phone mentioned, that where can we start by guiding? And it always starts from being compassionate and coming from, let's inshallah leave the shame out of these topics, because at the end of the day, people have real problems, and until you're out there listening to the problems, you realize that people don't show up and say that this is my problem, because they're scared, they're afraid. And where our brothers and sisters are struggling behind closed doors. And inshallah, the whole reason why I'm so passionate about these topics and coming on this platform and speaking on this TV show as well is because I don't want it to be that these topics are left untouched and we're too frightened to talk about them, because we don't know how to, guide people through them. But it really starts by doing simple things, by bringing good character to our own table, bringing manners to our table, leave out the judgment, leave out the backbiting, because even though we think that we're not talking about the people within our own home, but it's sometimes the people within our own home who are struggling. And when we're going to them to backbite about somebody else's issues, the people within our own home that we love so much and dearly care for, they feel like, oh well, how can I trust my loved ones if this is how they think about other people? So honestly, it's time to scrap our whole way of thinking about how to deal with these topics and embrace new beliefs, new thoughts, and be open-minded. Because at the end of the day, the world wasn't how it was 20 years ago or 30 years ago or 50 years ago. The time is changing, and until you are open to realizing that things are changing very quickly, our children are going to struggle, because we're not going to be open to new way of thinking. We have children in schools that are coming back with new beliefs, and if we just shut them down constantly, then we're not really creating a place for healthy communication. So inshallah, especially if you're a mother, a father, or if you are the eldest in the family even, it's really important that you get curious. Start by being curious instead of you always hear those stories of parents who are saying, well, back in my days we didn't have this. Well, guess what, we're not back in your days anymore, and we need to get with the times and say, okay, I understand, like, tell me what the issues are, tell me what you're struggling with, tell me what's going on, tell me about the conversations that you're having with your friends. And to be honest, a lot of children and teenagers and young adults won't talk about it, but it's only until we stop being interesting and stop being interested in what's going on within their lives and actually listen instead of constantly trying to shove your beliefs down their throat. That's where the real change happens. Talk to them, be present, be in the moment, and actually have real conversations instead of it constantly being that, this is how it should be and there's no other way. Be that person who comes in with an open mind and, more importantly, an open heart, because these are the things that we need to talk about more often. And until we decide that we're going to make a difference, and until we decide, making a difference, it's not a feeling like, oh, I feel ready to make a difference. It's a decision. I'm ready. I will decide from now that I will listen. I will be open-minded. I will allow them to have a voice, because when we give the youth a voice, that's when we can make a real difference. Because it's when we are stuck in our own beliefs and are not able to open our mind to new beliefs, then how can we be in a position to help those who have beliefs that are very different from ours? So I know, especially within families, sometimes we feel like we know what's going on, but the truth is we don't always know what's going on, and that can be very scary for some, especially for me as a mother, for many mothers or fathers or parents who are listening, it can be scary. We don't know what's going on, or we're left in the dark. But just as I said, inshallah, have an open heart, have an open mind. And if you do have any topics you'd like to discuss about what's going on with the youth, or what's going on within our homes, or all these topics that we feel like are untouchable or that we can't speak about, let's speak about them. Let's make it normal. Let's make it topics that we openly discuss within our homes, because that's inshallah when the real change will happen, inshallah. So feel free to message us on the WhatsApp number that has been put on the screen, or the number that has been placed on screen, obviously with your bill payer's permission. And do visit britishmuslim.tv/support if you need any more support on this topic, or any of the topics that we discuss, or anywhere you feel like we need more support. Please do visit the website, inshallah, and see you next week at 8 o'clock for our show, Ask the Alima.
Allah, ya Allah.